Good morning, everyone. I think we're going to hold off for a couple more minutes, make sure everyone's able to join us. So I guess a question for all of you who are here now is, what are some of the other tools you like to use to make you more efficient? So I know that I use TextExpander all the time, but I'm a big fan of several other tools that really help me. My computer, I like to use, it's a really small sort of little thing, but there's a thing called trip mode. It helps block network activity, so that way when you're, say, doing a video call, then it lets you sort of quickly turn off Dropbox and turn off the cloud stuff, so that way you get like better connection speeds. Looks like somebody loves OmniFocus. Yes, actually, one of my colleagues, huge OmniFocus user. Whenever we have a meeting, he'll just immediately, he's in OmniFocus, like putting in action items for himself. Yes, 1Password. Yes, Smile runs on 1Password. We definitely have their Teams account so that we can figure out who needs access to which passwords. I should hope everyone in the audience is using 1Password, because how else are you going to remember all of your passwords? I'm sure no one here has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 as their password, even though statistically most people do, which is terrible. I don't know. What about you, Brett? What are some of your other favorites?
Oh, absolutely. 1Password. 1Password has and everywhere. In fact, I may actually use it a little bit more on my iPhone just because it's the easiest way to jump into a website, but absolutely constantly using it on my Mac. And I'll tell another one that you and I were just talking about is a little utility on the Mac called Moom, M-O-O-M, and it's from a company called Minitrix. It's a really nifty, quick way to resize your windows. I know when I came from the Windows world, I could drag my windows and resize them in any way that I wanted to quickly, and it was a little different when I first came to the Mac, which was many years ago now. But you know, the expand or the maximize button didn't work quite the same, so I found this utility called Moom, M-O-O-M, and I use little keyboard shortcuts now to like quickly shift my Word document, maybe one over to the left. It takes up the left half of the screen, and I put another one on the right side of the screen, or I resize it quickly that way. I love that little utility. And you said somebody mentioned default folder X, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, love that. For me, that's probably one of the best productivity choices I made, was getting that to be able to quickly save a file into a folder without having to go and look and click through the different subfolders that I have. Love default folder X.
Excellent. Well, I think we waited a bit, so hopefully everybody who chooses to be here is here. So I will begin. Welcome, as I said, good morning and afternoon for whatever your time zone is. My name is Maya Olson. I've worked with Smile software for many years. We are the developers of TextExpander, and I'm very happy to be able to present to you today Brett Burney, a legal technology consultant, to show off all the cool ways that he uses TextExpander and trains lawyers and firms to use TextExpander. I encouraged you when you signed up to ask some questions. So all of those that aren't answered in the coming presentation, I'll be very happy to address at the Q&A session at the end. And anyways, if you come up with any questions along the way, feel free to put them in the questions, type them in, and I will be answering as we go. So Brett, I will let you take over.
Excellent. Thanks, Maya. I appreciate it. And thank you all for taking a few minutes out of your day to be here and learn about, I think, it could be possibly one of the most productive apps you could have on your Mac, and now today you could even have on your Windows machine and on your iPad and your iPhone. I've been using TextExpander now for many, many years, and it's one of those things now where I almost can't use a computer without TextExpander, because it's something that's so ingrained in what I do, and for good reason. TextExpander to me is such a productivity crutch in the sense that it is the best thing because it is helping me do something that I'm already doing. I was telling somebody the other day, there's so many schemes and plans and programs that you could do for how to be more productive in what you do, but it almost seems like every single one of them requires you to learn a new habit or get up 15 minutes earlier or change something in your daily routine or after 20 days you're going to have a new skill because you're forcing yourself to do it. Well, those are all fine and good in some circumstances, but TextExpander helps you actually be more productive and save time in your day because it works on something that you are already doing. We're already typing, whether it's on a computer or our iPhone. All of us are typing constantly throughout the day. And TextExpander literally saves you time in working on the computer in what you're doing every day. It gives you time back in your day, as we're going to go through and show here. We thought this would be a good exercise to wrap the presentation around 5 specific ways that TextExpander helps you to not only just save time in your day, but you can actually reclaim time in your day. And even better, what I've always loved about TextExpander is it's a tangible, it's like a quantifier. Or in other words, I can literally see exactly how much time I'm saving per day or over the year's time because it is tracking how much time that it's saving me. There's a little statistics button inside TextExpander that tells you exactly how many characters you saved and how many hours you saved throughout the lifespan of the software over a year, however you want to look at it and break it down, so that it shows you exactly how much time that it has saved you. There are 3 words that I typically use to describe TextExpander, and the first is efficiency. Just like what we're talking about, it makes you more efficient because, as you'll see in just a few moments, within just typing a few characters, a handful of characters, it can immediately expand out to hundreds of characters, as many as you really want. That is efficiency, that you can do less work and get more done. Accurate, it's accuracy. TextExpander, not only will it expand out an abbreviation or a snippet for you every time, but every time that it expands it out, it's 100% accurate. There's no fat fingering that goes on there. There's no, wait a minute, how did you spell his name again? Or wait, I can't remember, what day is it today as you're typing this? Or when you type, sometimes you type things so fast that you have to delete and backspace. None of that. When you use a TextExpander abbreviation, a snippet there, it automatically expands it out for you, and it's 100% accurate. And ubiquity. I have been a long-time user of the autocorrect function inside Microsoft Word, and I'm going to guess many of you probably are in the same boat. I remember when I was in law school, which is many, many, many years ago now, but I did have a laptop computer there, and I would use Microsoft autocorrect to change things. I remember I had a shortcut for Supreme Court. I think it was SUPCT, and every time that I typed that in Microsoft Word, it would expand out to the United States Supreme Court. But that autocorrect function only worked in Microsoft Word. I couldn't put it in my email application, for example, or into my notes application or anything else. It would only work within Microsoft Word. And what I love about TextExpander is that I can have that exact same abbreviation for the United States Supreme Court, but I can use it anywhere. Anywhere I have a blinking cursor is the way I describe it. I can use a TextExpander snippet to immediately expand out all of the information that I need. Here is our distinguished panel today. Ladies first, there's Maya from Smile Software, which are the developers of not only TextExpander, but also another fantastic Mac application, which is PDF Pen. So many of us have used Adobe Acrobat for years and years, but Smile Software also makes PDF Pen and PDF Pen Pro. But TextExpander is what we're going to be focusing on today. In the middle, Tom is not able to be with us today, but didn't want it to go by without mentioning Tom from Global Mac IT. If you are a Mac-based law firm, you owe it to yourself to get on Tom's mailing list, and his team is fantastic for supporting many Mac-based law firms around the country. And as Maya was gracious to introduce me, my main company is Burney Consultants. I also have a fabulous time blogging on maxinlaw.com and also appsinlaw.com, which is where I have little short video reviews of apps that lawyers use on the iPad and the iPhone. I've also started up a podcast, which has been totally fun. I keep it short, but I basically just interview a lot of lawyers and what apps that they use on a day-to-day basis. So that's appsinlaw.com. All right, so let's start with the basics on TextExpander. If you have never used TextExpander, but you're already curious now, the best place you can go is textexpander.com. You'll see this is the screenshot from the web page here, and there's a little video so that you can check out exactly how TextExpander works. And actually, if you scroll down on the web page, I didn't have it here in the screenshot, but right in the middle of that web page is a really nifty little animation that I end up watching almost every time. It shows you exactly how TextExpander works. I guess you could jump there now if you wanted to, or you can just watch the rest of this and go there a little bit later, but I'm going to show you a lot of what it shows in the middle of that screen. But a lot of great information there, and you can see at the very top there is a support button or tab at the top of the page there, which takes you to their fabulous help section. And then also the blog section is another great resource for learning about other people. Maya and the team there at TextExpander were gracious to put me, feature me in the latest blog post there, and it talks about how I use TextExpander, but there's also David Sparks, another lawyer in Orange County, California, that is profiled there as well on the blog. He talks about the different snippets that he uses. One of them I think he uses for creating a date for a contract, which, as many of you know, the dates sometimes look a little weird, how we actually put the dates into a contract, but David shares a really nifty snippet that he uses for that. Now, to sign up for TextExpander, the great thing is the TextExpander team is generous in that you can use this for 30 days and try it out before you even have to pay anything, which I absolutely recommend, again, for anybody that has not made the investment yet. I am absolutely confident that after just a few days of using it and utilizing some of the tips I'm going to show you in just a moment here, that it will already pay for itself. But nonetheless, you can use it for free for a few days. There are two main pricing plans, as you can see them here. This is, again, from TextExpander.com. The Life Hacker plan is the less expensive, but it is sort of limited to your own world. In other words, if you wanted your own world of snippets and you never cared about sharing them with other individuals in your office, that would be the plan you could start with, or you could even start with that if you wanted to, and then move up to the team. I am finding many more small and mid-sized law firms that are shifting over to the team plan at TextExpander because it allows you to administrate or share snippets across your firm in your office. In fact, I was just talking with another lawyer that he created several fantastic little snippets in TextExpander, but he wanted to make sure that his assistant and his paralegal were using those exact same snippets. In other words, he didn't want them to create their own and do it a little bit different so that it wasn't consistent. So he has the team subscription to TextExpander, and he now is the one that oversees exactly how those snippets will be created, and so then the other people in the office can access that, and he can administrate and manage who gets access to that all the time. So those are the two main plans there, and you can I'll show an email later on from Maya and her team. If you have any questions on any of that, they'll be more than happy to help you out with that. Now, TextExpander 6, I think, is maybe just barely a year old. Maya, you can jump in if I'm a little wrong, but it's fairly new. So TextExpander 6 is our latest version of TextExpander, and one of the big differences that Smile made with TextExpander 6 is that it now uses a subscription model, which sometimes there's still some people that push back on that, but I would just like to mention a couple of reasons why I think it works out great. Number one, because with a subscription model that Smile handles, the synchronization between your different devices is seamless. The older versions of TextExpander, you could sync, but you had to set it up yourself. I think I used a Dropbox backend, and I think at one point the iCloud system could be used on the back end. And sometimes it would get messed up if people moved the subscription file or the sync file within Dropbox. All kinds of things would kind of happen, and you couldn't access it other than using the TextExpander software. Well, now with TextExpander 6, it is seamless in the sense you can see I've got 3 different platforms in which I use TextExpander all the time. It's primarily been a Mac application, so it does certainly work great on the Mac side, but it works in Windows just fine. This is fairly new too. Smile Software has not been a Windows software company for very long, save for a few things, but they are coming on strong now with TextExpander in the sense that it can now use the same snippets back and forth. There were a couple of other tools that I would have to use on the Windows side in the dark years that would try to sync with my TextExpander snippets, but it never worked out wonderfully. So now that I have this capability, it's great. And then, of course, on my iPhone and my iPad, I love to be able to access those snippets when I'm using email on my iPad or my iPhone, and all of that syncs now, which is wonderful. And then the other main advantage of the subscription model is that now I can easily share my snippets with other individuals. So this is literally a screenshot of my Safari web browser, and you can see I've logged into my TextExpander account. You just go to TextExpander.com. There's a little login page, or you can go to this app.textexpander.com and log in as well. And so here, not only do I have access to my snippets on my computers, I can go to any computer connected to the internet. I can pull up my snippet groups after I log in, and then you see these little orange buttons over on the right with a little person and a plus sign there. That allows me now to share my snippets with other individuals, and it's sort of on a one-on-one kind of a sharing capability. Upgrading to the Teams account gives you a lot more capabilities than this kind of one-on-one type of a sharing. But in this case, this is a very good method to share it. For example, one other colleague, or you can see what is number 3 there, Bootcamp 2017 snippets. I went to a conference, a small conference, where we were talking about TextExpander, and I created a set of snippets for that conference, and it was great because everybody at the conference was able to subscribe to this group that I had made and use them while we were there. So hopefully that helps understand the subscription component of TextExpander 6. Once you, I think it's harder for some of us that have come from the old background to kind of shift into the subscription service. But if TextExpander is a little bit new for you, this is the way it is. And now that I've been using it this way for about a little over a year now, I wouldn't want to go back to anything else. Here is the first way. TextExpander will allow you to reclaim your time. Never should you have to type out your entire email address again, your entire physical office address, your phone numbers. TextExpander can do this for you. Think of something that you type repeatedly every day, throughout the day, every other day, whatever the case may be, and tell yourself, I don't have to manually type this, because the computer, via TextExpander, can type this for you. This is one of the greatest things that I tell people. Start simple when you first start getting into TextExpander. Always just start simple. It's the KISS principle, right? Because I promise you, just starting with the first couple of snippets, you're going to start to see the power inside TextExpander, and it will just naturally come to you in some of the other areas where you can start using TextExpander. So let me jump into a demo here. So I'm going to get out of my presentation, and I'm going to pull up a blank Microsoft Word document. Now, I typically will show the or demo the TextExpander components here in Microsoft Word, because I assume the vast majority of you today, you live in Microsoft Word for a large amount of time during your day. But anything that I show here in using Microsoft Word can certainly be used in Apple's Pages application. You can use it inside your Mail app, whether it's Outlook or the Mail app on Mac. You can use it in OneNote, for example, or PowerPoint, or Excel, or wherever that you would have a blinking cursor, as I like to call it. TextExpander is going to work for you, and it's across the board. It's ubiquitous in the sense that it works across every application here. So my business email address is pretty long. Let me go ahead and start typing it out here. So it's my last name, Burney at whoops, I put a space in there, Burney. So let me back up, Burney Consultants. This is hard for me because, as you'll see in a moment, I rarely ever type this all the way out. So I have too many C's, O-M. Okay, so now I'm done. Finally, I got that typed out. Now that didn't take very long, maybe just a few seconds there. So I understand some of you are kind of already smirking a little bit because it's like, what's the big deal? That didn't really take very long to do. I did have to backspace a couple of times and take a space out, and I misspelled it a little bit, and I did pretty good there. But I actually have a TextExpander snippet that is created for my email address, because I find that many times throughout the day I will type my email address, whether it's something in a body of an email or it's in a Word document or something else along the lines that I need to type this. So here is my snippet. Now I'm going to enclose my snippet in quotation marks so that you can see it, but it's not going to expand it yet. So my snippet for my email address is BC and the @ symbol. So I just put it in quotes there because I didn't want it to expand yet, right? So it's just BC @ symbol. So let me now type my snippet without the quotes on it, and let's see what happens. I'm just going to do B, C, and @ symbol, and immediately I have now typed just 3 characters, and it immediately expanded out to 28 characters. So every time I type BC @ symbol, just like that, immediately expands out for me. So now I have saved myself typing 25 characters. Again, not too many. I know this may sound a little trivial in the way that I'm explaining it here, but I know that all of you can immediately start to see how much time this can save you throughout every single day. For example, if I type my email address, let's say 20 times a day, that's fairly conservative, I think. If I type it in 20 times a day, that would be a lot of characters I'd be typing there, at 28 characters for my entire email address. But if I save myself 25 characters every time, that means I've saved myself over 20 times a day typing my email address. I've saved myself 500 characters during that day. Again, not a lot when it stands on its own, but in the aggregate, that's a lot of time. That's several minutes now that I have saved myself. And not to leave sort of the intangibles on the table either, in the sense that it just makes me feel great. That I'm not having to sit there, retype it out. Oh, which email am I typing again? Did I spell that right? Did I misspell it? No, because every single time that I use my snippet, not only does it make me more efficient, save me time, but it is also 100% accurate. It is accurate every single time. And that means a lot to me as I go through the day. And again, it's ubiquitous in the sense that I can use this anywhere that I am. Even if I wanted to come right here, jump into my slide, you can see I'm just creating my new slide, and I start typing my snippet, it immediately expands here, even in Keynote, which is what I'm using on my Mac now. All right, so hopefully you kind of get the idea. I've just started with a very, very simple aspect. I've got several of these others ready for my office address or for my phone numbers. I think my office address is OFFADD, and immediately there, within 6 characters, I've immediately expanded it out to my entire office address. All right, so I'm taking a little bit longer on this first way that you can reclaim time with TextExpander, but it's purposeful because I want you to at least get the general idea. Now I'm jumping into TextExpander. So TextExpander is this box here that's now in front, and I'm going to just quickly go through the different steps of how to actually create and build a snippet. Here's my slide here, and I tell people creating a snippet is as simple as 1, 2, 3. You just need to think about the content of this snippet. In other words, what is it that you want the snippet or the abbreviation to expand out to? It's good to put a label on your snippets, although you really don't even need that. I like to have it to be able to organize my snippets a little bit better. And then you need to think of the abbreviation. What is the snippet abbreviation that you are going to be using here? So let me now jump back into TextExpander, which is this window now on top of my screen. And you can see I've got quite a number of snippets over here. Just you don't have to worry about those right now. I've been using TextExpander for a long time, so I've got quite a collection here. When you first start, you may only have a few on here, and you can put them into groups and create new snippets. So I've got a group up here called 5 Ways to Reclaim Time. And I am going to build something for you right now and just kind of show you how simple that it is. Let me see if I can do this here. I'm going to create new snippet. So I've got a new snippet over here. As we talked about, the content is the first step that you need to look at. Now there's a drop-down box up here at the content. Most of your snippets are going to be the plain text version. Those work the best in just about any application. You can go all the way down to the bottom here and have formatted text with pictures. Many times, if people use TextExpander for their email signatures, they'll put a little picture in there or fancy text, and you can certainly do that within TextExpander. I typically recommend stay with plain text unless you have a very specific need for some of the formatted text on there. It's just that the plain text is going to work the best in all of the applications, I find. All right, next we have this big box here, which is where you're going to put the actual expanded content. What do you want it to show once you've got everything out there? So I'm going to go ahead and type my email address again. It's hard for me because I'm so used to hitting my snippet there. But that's what I wanted. That's the result that I want, okay? Now, label down here at the bottom. Again, you don't have to do this, but let's just say this is going to be my business email address. So this, to me, just helps understand what the snippet includes, and it shows up over here on the left side. When I click into the abbreviation box down here, you can see that it now has my label up here so that I can see exactly what it's going to look like. Now for my abbreviation, few things that you want to think about here when you are getting ready to create your abbreviation. You already know that my abbreviation for my email address is the letters B, C, and then the @ symbol. That made sense to me because I think of Burney Consultants as BC, and the @ symbol is always associated with email addresses, right? So that made sense to me, and that's what I've gone with. But you can create whatever works for you. You can create a new trigger. Some people will use, put 2 Z's or 2 Q's or 2 X's before the word email, for example, because you're probably never going to find a word where you're going to put 2 Q's at the very beginning of that. In other words, so it's never going to interfere with something else that you may be typing. Some people like to put slashes, or some people like to put semicolons because, first of all, if you're a touch typist, your pinky is already on the semicolon, so you could do semicolon, semicolon, and then the word mail, for example. I typically like to stay with letters. It's just a personal preference with me because my fingers are already on the keyboard, and I don't want to use shift to hit a symbol like a ampersand or a percentage symbol. I've seen some people use that. You can certainly do that. It's just a personal preference that I like to use letters. Let me see if I can do biz mail here. How about that? In other words, this is my business email address. So my abbreviation is going to be BizMail. So I've got my content up at the top here. It's plain text. I can put whatever I want in this box. I put a label on it just so that it's helpful for me to be able to organize my different snippets. And then I have the abbreviation down here, BizMail. But you can certainly use whatever content or triggers or symbols or whatever else is going to help you remember what that abbreviation is going to be used for. Once I'm done with my abbreviation, I am pretty much done with this snippet, and it's live. It's ready to go. So if I switch back over here now to Microsoft Word and go down here, you remember I'm going to put this in quotes here. It's BizMail in quotes, so that's not going to expand. But if I type it without quotes, immediately now it expands out exactly to that email address. So while TextExpander is so incredibly powerful, I hope that you can see it is a good thing to start first at a very simple level. Something that you think about, that you type throughout the day. If you are keen, you've already been looking ahead here, you can see I've got my mobile phone number already here, my business phone number, my office mailing address. These are things that I am typing throughout the day. So if somebody either texted me or somebody sent an email, hey, what's your business phone? I'm not going to sit there and try to put the numbers. I don't even like to put my fingers up to the numbers unless I really have to. But I do know that my business phone is biz phone, and all I have to do is type that, and immediately it expands out into my business phone number there. Or you can make it even shorter. You can do O phone or OOP or something along those lines. Just make sure that whatever you use for your abbreviation is not going to clash or interfere with something that you may type in a regular word. In other words, you don't want your abbreviation to show up inside of other words that you type, because you don't want your abbreviation to start popping off in the middle of a paragraph that you may be typing. I hope that makes sense. I can certainly answer some of the other questions.
In terms of thinking about how abbreviations work within words, Brett is entirely right. But there's also a question of, well, what happens if you have two abbreviations and they're very similar? They seem to interfere with each other. So TextExpander watches what you type in the order you type it. So if you imagine like you're writing the word catalog, right? When you do C-A-T, if you have a snippet that is set to expand when you type C-A-T, you'll never get to finish typing the word catalog because the snippet will expand. Now let's say you have two snippets. One is like C-A-T-1 and the other is just C-A-T. Well, if you type C-A-T, the first snippet expands, which never gives you the chance to expand the second snippet, which is C-A-T-1. So the goal is to sort of keep a unique abbreviation prefix. So the very beginning of the snippets needs to be slightly different so that they don't interfere. But you can have W phone for your work phone and like H phone for home phone. There you have phone in both of them, but like the beginning letter differentiates them so that as you type, they are not confused with each other.
Yeah, that's great. Thanks. And thanks for asking. You know, in fact, I'm going to show an example here in the next way. I think I'm ready to move on to the second way that TextExpander helps you reclaim some time. And I love this. Use TextExpander to type all those weird and odd symbols that we as legal professionals may use throughout the day, or even you can expand it beyond symbols. You can even use it, you know, for Latin phrases, for example, or something else that it's always been maybe a little difficult or a little time-consuming for you as you go through your day to actually point it out. So here's one of the things that I did. Let me go ahead and start a new page here in my Word document here. So just so we have a little bit of a clean slate here. You can see I've already got on this screen several symbols that we use. The section symbol, there's the paragraph, copyright symbol. I don't know if anybody even uses the cents symbol anymore. And then the delta that we typically use for defendant, for example. Well, the way that I handle this, first of all, let me just say, TextExpander actually has a really nice public group of snippets that you can subscribe to, and it's on its all the way. Well, I did have it here at the bottom. I don't know I must have taken it off here and subscribed to that. But there is a symbols group that you can subscribe to that has all kinds of really great sections in there. You can see they even have sort of an emoji group on here. But here I've got a group that I created in TextExpander called My Symbols. And I actually copied a lot of these symbols from the TextExpander symbols. And then I created my own, and then I made my own abbreviations. And if you look here on the right side is exactly what Maya was just talking about. I actually do use a / in front of all my symbols. It made sense to me. First of all, the / is under the question mark, right? So it's right there by my pinky, so it's not I guess I don't want to move my fingers very much. That's my issue. But that's not that big of a leap for me. I can get that / very quickly without having to look down at my keyboard or do anything. I can pop that in. And then I just used a few letters after the / to designate what I want the symbol to be. So you guys probably have already looked at this a little bit. For my cent symbol, I've just got a / and then CENT. No spaces, by the way. That goes back again to what Maya was just talking about. I don't like to put spaces in there. First of all, space is yet another character I got to type. And second of all, there could be a situation, I guess, where I could type / space cent, and I wouldn't want that to interfere with anything else. So I don't put any spaces in here. Here's my section symbol, by the way, down here, that I can just do /SEC. So let me just show you what that looks like, although I'm sure you can already imagine. Instead of trying to find the section symbol, or sometimes I would go up here to edit and find my symbols up here in Microsoft Word, or I would go to another document and I would copy the section symbol and then paste it into my Word document. If you're doing any of that still today, you are wasting valuable time in your day, because this is exactly where TextExpander can help you reclaim that time. If you just create your own symbols, you do /cent, and immediately it puts that cent symbol right there, or /para is the other one that I had. Immediately puts the paragraph symbol. Or I think I had /defendant, and there is the delta, or /plaintiff is my pi for plaintiff. You get the idea where we're going here.
On the topic of having spaces in snippets, there is actually a specific snippet case where having spaces in the abbreviation in the content is very helpful, and that is for the capital I. So we get questions all the time about how can I make sure that my lone capital I is actually capitalized. I'm typing quickly, I did it lowercase. So if the abbreviation is the thing you type, accidentally, space, lowercase I, space, what you want to take its place is space, capital I, space.
Oh,
so
right.
That's what you put in the content. And there you have a capital I. And
very nice.
Since the space is just another character, that actually counts as something that will help trigger the snippet.
Excellent.
And so you said that you copied some of those symbols from our symbols group. So I want to show you something neat that you can do. So actually, do you still have the symbols group there in TextExpander?
I think I must have to resubscribe. Oh, there it is. There it is, right down there.
All right,
yes,
so just click on the word symbols there, so that way we can get to the group settings.
Gotcha.
And there's a neat thing. So if you look at the very bottom, there's a thing called prefix. And then next to that, if you click that little checkbox, override means you can add whatever prefix you want. So if you don't like those abbreviations, you can actually add a / right there. And now, automatically, all of those abbreviations will have a / in front of them. So that's what it takes to expand the snippet. So,
oh, look at that. As soon as I clicked in there, exactly, it added the little / there for there. Oh, that's
right. So
nifty.
when you have
Thank
shared
you.
groups or any of our public groups, and you don't, you want to change the abbreviation, say maybe it interferes with an abbreviation in groups that you already have, then this is a quick way to get around that.
And this is great. Now you can see it right here. What we're talking about is this is a TextExpander public group. There's a whole great page that Maya and others continue to add to that you can actually subscribe to some of these public groups. And if you look way down here at the bottom, you can see there's this add public group, and that'll take you to a web page where you can subscribe to it. But they did put a lot of these symbols in here, and I've even gotten some from the foreign things. I think that was David Sparky, how to say thank you in Polish. If you ever need that, you don't have to go and look it up. You can just write Poland thanks, and it actually populates out in there. But I love that, Maya. Thank you so much for showing that little tip there. You can override that so that, I mean, personally, I do use these symbols sometimes, but I like to have my own groups only because I guess I'm a control freak and I like to have that. But that's fantastic to know. But you can see these different areas here where these are all my snippets up here at the top, and then these are ones that I've shared. This is an organization actually by Tom and his group at Global Mac IT, and then these are from TextExpander that I've put in there. So that's great. Okay, but real quick, I promised I wanted to show an example of something that Maya, you just talked about as well. Sometimes we use a single section symbol, and other times we use two section symbols, right? Many of us know that if you're writing a brief or so. Well, here's something I ran into that I think illustrates exactly what you were just talking about, Maya, that if /SEC is my section symbol, that's what I like to use, then if I needed two, it would almost be logical that I should say /SECS, right, for multiple section symbols, and it's plural. But to illustrate what Maya just said, if I did that, I would never get to that last S. In other words, if I go down here, I've got this sections highlighted here, and if I go down here and try to change my abbreviation, you can see, first of all, now it's the same, and TextExpander even puts a nice little bright orange color on it to show you that you are interfering with another snippet here. So if I add an S at the end of this, it still interferes. So there would never be a time now that TextExpander would let me get to /SECS, because it would always expand out the individual section symbol. I hope that makes sense. It made sense to me that I did want to have an extra S. So instead of adding it at the end, I now put it at the beginning. So I can do /SEC for a single one, or /SSEC for a double section symbol. I hope that makes sense. There's a lot of other symbols you could add in there. I love this because I constantly like to put, you can see I even have the all-important Apple little symbol in there, or I even have a couple for the Mac little symbol, the clover leaf, and actually TextExpander, you guys put that down at the bottom on some of these too. But if you're in intellectual property, you can have things for registered trademark. I've got the service mark there, trademark, and then copyright in the circle. You get the general idea. To me, TextExpander is fantastic for using all of that there. All right, so let's go on to number 3. Never waste valuable time looking up the current date. One of the things that TextExpander has built in is, I think, what they officially call date macros, but I think of it as date magic, honestly, because I know before TextExpander, the dark days without TextExpander, I needed to put in a specific date, for example. And I would usually have to go back into Outlook, get out of whatever I'm doing, go into Outlook, look at the date, or maybe ask somebody, or look up at the wall or my calendar that maybe I had on the wall or something to that effect, and then try to figure out, wait, is it October? Is it exactly what month? And usually at the beginning of the year, you know, it's always hard. It takes a few weeks for us to remember exactly what year we're in. Well, nevermore do I have to worry about that, at least when I'm typing, because TextExpander has the capabilities built into the application that it can create dates for you. So let me see if I can go and just show you a couple of examples here in what I do. The date format that I typically use when I name documents or when I'm writing notes, for example, is I put the year first, dot, the month, and the day. So it'll look something like this, 2017. I like using dots. Some people like to use dashes or underscores or slashes, but I would do 10 and then put another dot and then 04. Now that didn't take long, but before I typed it, I did glance up in the corner of my computer to make sure that I didn't make a fool of myself and I had the exact correct date on there. But I have a snippet set up inside TextExpander. In fact, my snippet is, let me put it in quotes here so you can see it. The snippet is DDT. Again, that just made sense to me. It was about a date. It was, my fingers are already on D, my left hand, and then the T is not that much of a stretch to get up there, so I knew this was going to be quick. So now, whenever I want to put in the current date, I never waste time looking up a calendar, looking on my screen. I just simply do DDT, and there's the date. Now, I don't need that format all the time. So I have other formats. I think I literally have one called full date, and not only does it expand out the actual date, I even have a timestamp that's put on there. And then if I'm writing notes, for example, inside Word or OneNote, I do like to have my previous date format, and then I also want to have a timestamp. So instead of DDT, which you see up there, this one has DDT, so 3 Ds. So if I do that, you can see immediately expands out with the regular format of my date plus the timestamp on there. So let me go through and show quickly how you can build this, because how in the world does TextExpander do this every day when the days change? It'd be simple if I could just go into TextExpander, create a new snippet that would have today's date in there, but I don't want that. I want today's date to be whatever the date is. So I'm going to go back up into TextExpander, create a new snippet here. And in fact, first I'm going to go down here and put this today's date as a label on there. And let me just do TDAT for today's date on there. All right? So I haven't done the content yet. I've put a label on it so that I know this is my snippet for today's date. And my abbreviation is TDate. Okay, got that. Now I want to put in the current date. How do we do this? This is the date magic here. There's a little drop-down box for the date macro. There's also a little timestamp drop-down here as well. But let's just go with the dates for right now. How do you want this to look? I think I'm going to put the day of the week first. Then I'll put a comma. Then I'll put the month, and then the actual numeric date, and then another comma, and then the year. All right? So that's the plan. So when I do this drop-down, I simply just go and find the day. That's what I want first. I want the day of the week. I don't want it to be MO. I don't want it to be the number yet. But I'm going to put Monday. Now that looks weird, but that's basically just the macro language that TextExpander is using and it understands. if that makes sense. You don't have to understand it. It's just the way that as you build this, this is the terminology that TextExpander is using. Now, that's the day of the week. I want a comma after that. So there, I'm going to manually type a comma right here, and then a space. So I've got the day of the week, comma, space. Now, the next thing I want is the month. What is the month here? I want that written out all the way. So there is what I'm going to select. The month is January. Great. Okay, still looks a little weird. That's fine. But now I want a space because I want it to be Wednesday, comma, October, and then a space. And then I want the numeric date, which if I pull my drop down again, could either be just an individual number without a leading zero, or you can have a leading zero. I'm going to do it without the leading zero because I want it to be formatted kind of nice. If there are two numbers in the day, TextExpander will automatically add that. It's just that today is the 4th, so it's only going to have a 4 and won't have a leading zero in there. All right, that's great. Now, after that, I want another comma, and then a space, and then to round this off, I want the full year built in here. So I'm going to go back to my little drop down, and you can see there's only 2 years to pick from up here at the top, so I'm going to pick the first one. Now, that looks really weird, but it's magic. So now I've got this. I've called it today's date. My abbreviation is TDate. Let's see what happens when I go back over here to Word. Make that small so you can kind of see what happens here. Give it a couple of spaces down, TDATE, and you can see just like that, I've got the entire date expanded out exactly the way that I wanted it to look. Now I've got several others here on the way that I will type my dates depending on exactly, again, what it is that I want. For example, I've got a specific one here for the way that the dates work within Microsoft Excel. They don't work with my formatting usually, and they like to have slashes instead. So if you look up here, I created my snippet in exactly that way. And if I go down here, and my little abbreviation is DDX, so if I do DDX, you can see the month comes first, slash the day, slash the year. And it's because I built it the exact same way by using this little drop down, and then I put slashes there instead. So hopefully that makes sense. There is so much more that you can do here. I use this not only for inline, like on a Word document or inside of a mail message, for example, but as you'll see, I think in my next one that I've got here, I use it at the beginning of file names. So here's the fourth way that you can reclaim time with TextExpander. I name my files quickly and accurately every time. So we use exactly what you just saw, the format. And I like to borrow this little nugget of fantastic tips from David Sparks when he, a couple of years ago, several years ago now, he wrote for Macworld. David is an attorney out in Orange County, California, and a big proponent of TextExpander as well. But I love this portion that he wrote because this doesn't apply just to lawyers, but it's very important for lawyers. The first part of a file name is always the date in this specific format, the year first, the month, and the day. For example, November 12, 2012 appears as 2012-11-12. This format is really computer friendly. If you have 30 files named this way, then you can sort them by name. Your computer will automatically sort them in the date order. Now, he uses a hyphen between them. Some people use underscores. I like to use periods. In this case, when you're doing file naming, you do not want to use slashes. Some computers are not going to be friendly to the slashes when it becomes the file name. Let me just show you quickly here the way that I have my file naming. I've got a group here called naming files, and this is probably one of the ones that I use constantly throughout the day because I'm constantly creating new files all the time, and I am putting the date at the beginning. Now I could just use, for example, if I have a new date, let's say I want to do a file save as, and I'm going to put it in, I'll typically just use my DDT abbreviation here to put that at the beginning, and then I can say letter to client, right? And then this will be a Word document, for example, or something else along those lines. So many times I'll just simply use my date snippet that I already have built in. However, you can even get a little crazier with this. So for example, I created a pretty intricate looking file name here. Basically what I've done is I've actually used one of my snippets in there. You can see there's the DDT snippet that I actually used inside this snippet. So in other words, I'm embedding one snippet into another snippet, and that's my DDT snippet. And then I've used these single line field text fields to basically create little boxes where I can complete further information about the file. So I've got a field text here for the doc type, I've got a field text for the client, and a field text for the matter. Now, what in the world does this look like? Because that looks like quite a crazy amount of information. Well, this is file naming, and the abbreviation I used is FF name. So let me just show you what that looks like. When I go back to Word and I do FF name, instead of just immediately expanding out into text, it comes up with a little box. Now, the first thing is it put my snippet in there, which is today's date. The next thing is it's asking me, what is the doc type? We'll call this a memo. Now I can hit my tab key on my keyboard to go to my client, and I'm just going to say John Smith, and I hit my tab again to the matter, and I'm just going to say landlord tenant. So in other words, TextExpander has basically created a small box here with little fill-in fields that allow me to complete a file name exactly the way that I want it to look. When I click OK, now it expands this out. Now I'm doing this inside Microsoft Word, but I could do it inside of a file save dialog box. In other words, when I do file save as, and I have that little box where it wants me to type the name of the file, I just simply put in FF name, my little snippet from over here, and it pops it in, and I just complete those little boxes, those fields that you just saw, and I'm on my way. And it works out great. Now, another one that I use here, for example, is file name for notes. A lot of times I'll create files all the time that says, notes for so-and-so. So my little snippet is DDNO. So if I do DDNO, notes for, and I use TTX for my text expander because I'm writing the word text expander all the time. I just use that inside a text expander snippet, and I can just hit my enter key, and sure enough, I've now got a file name for the notes that I created there. Hopefully that makes a little bit of sense. I use this constantly for file naming, and especially if you're at a firm where you don't have a doc management system and you're manually saving files into a network share drive or into your hard drive or into even Dropbox or something like that, using TextExpander to name your files is a great way to make sure that you are efficient every time and that you're accurate every single time. Okay, last way that you can save time, instantly insert paragraphs that you type a lot. Now I think I've got a really nifty, this is a few years old now, so the screenshot is old, but this is a firm out in California that used TextExpander to reply to interrogatories. And this is quite sophisticated here. Now again, this is an older version of TextExpander, but you can sort of get the idea. He had a folder called Discovery Objections, and as he went through and responded to each of the and needed each objection, he would simply have a TextExpander snippet that would simply type out the entire paragraph that he needed, rather than what many of us do, right, is find an old version of a document and then copy and paste the paragraphs that we need, which sometimes, of course, gets all confused and the formatting never works out right. Well, I thought this was an excellent idea, and this is what I've used for many of my clients that I work with, is that you can instantly type. So you can see I've got this, I just copied this from a New York state court document of some kind. I forget exactly where I got it from, but this is the entire paragraph that we have here, and I can see it actually, contractors, the little apostrophe up there didn't come through, but because it had the on there, but you can fix all that inside TextExpander. But instead of having to sit there and type that all out or copy it from another document, I just use kind of a long snippet there, an abbreviation, NY non-assigned clause, and it spits out the entire paragraph for me. Let me just show you quickly what that looks like here inside TextExpander. Here's my New York State contracts. Here I've got the executory clause, and then here's my non-assignment clause. So again, if I go back into Word and I've got this paragraph, it is NY non-assign clause. It's kind of a long snippet there, but you get the idea. And you can see here, actually, the apostrophes did come through just fine on here. I think it's when I copied it into my keynote presentation. Now, how great is that? And where would you be getting those paragraphs from before? Because you'd have to go and read through them from another old document. You'd have to paste it in. But now you've got all the text right there. And in fact, if there are some areas inside this paragraph that you may need to change based on the matter or the scenario, well, we can't get into this now, but TextExpander will allow you to go in, select something, and say, I need this to be an optional section, or I need this to be a drop-down section, or I need this to be a blank field so that I can type it in for a particular name, for example. I just had another attorney who does a lot of family law, and he had to file a divorce petition all the time. Well, it's a form that they had a Word template. He'd have to recreate it almost every time and change whether or not they were married or how many kids or they had dogs or whatever the case may be. He put all of that into a TextExpander snippet, and he had drop downs based on are they married or not, how many kids, etc. And it basically created an entire document. It's almost like document automation that he was able to do right here in TextExpander. Now that's really getting in the advanced area, but just to give you a flavor of where TextExpander can come into play and save you so much time in your day-to-day business. Now, if you like any of this information that I've been sharing with you, we've come to the end of what we're doing today, but I am thrilled to announce for the first time that I am getting ready to launch an online course, TextExpander for Lawyers. You can go to TextExpanderForLawyers.com. You can pre-order it now. It will be $97, but the pre-order price is $69. And just because it's the first time I'm announcing this and you guys are here today, If you go and check out today, you can save another $20 so that your price is going to be about 50% of what you would pay initially. Now, this is pre-order. I don't have all of the content finished, but I'm going to basically go through and walk you through everything you need to know about TextExpander. I'm going to show you exactly how to create your snippets and do some of these advanced things as well. So if you use the coupon code 20 Save My Fingers, it's not case sensitive. You can do it all lowercase, but it's 20 Save My Fingers. If you go to the TextExpanderForLawyers.com, you can save an extra $20 just for today. So quick takeaways here. Start simple. Just create one snippet today. Think of something you type many times, repeatedly throughout the day, your phone number, your office address, your email address, and just start there. I promise you, you start using that, you'll see where TextExpander can start saving you time throughout the day. Now, we've already mentioned TextExpander.com. Their blog is fantastic. In fact, let me just pull it up real quick here. If you go to TextExpander.com, and then up in the top there is the blog tab up here. These are, I was just telling Maya how great of work she does on it, because some really nifty tips on here. I love this. Keep TextExpander running and hidden in your background on the Mac. That's actually how I run TextExpander most of the time. It's not even an open application. It just really runs up there in the menu bar, but that's great to know on there how to search snippets quickly. You know, once you start using this, you see how many snippets that I have. I'm using my hotkeys inside TextExpander to quickly search for snippets if I can't exactly remember what one snippet was or another, because once you start getting a lot of them, it does get a little confusing and overwhelming, but you can use the search hotkeys in there to quickly find whatever snippet that you're looking for. And they did a really good job on enabling that search to be quick and to filter it quick. And then, as I just mentioned, my new course, TextExpanderForLawyers.com, just getting launched today. I'm hoping everything will be up in a couple of weeks on there. So I know we're a few minutes over time, Maya, but I am happy to take some questions or share some tips that you have as well, please.
All right, great. Thank you, Brett. I'd like to point out that in the chat, I've been posting out links of extra resources to the various topics that Brett covered. So I know we don't have time to cover everything in depth. There is, in fact, quite a lot and quite deep you can go. But in terms of the fill-ins and the date math, please check out those links so you can learn some more on your own. We did have some questions come in. Do you have any examples of active hyperlinks in snippets? Because a formatted text snippet can have both images and also active links. So
yes.
for my case, I really like those in email signatures, because then you know, you have a little picture of yourself and you have like a link to your website that's actually active when you expand it.
Here's one that I have. It's fairly simple, Maya. I think you probably have a little bit more on there, but this is you can see up here in the content, I did formatted text pictures, and really, I guess it's not an official picture, but it's an emoji. This was for my iPractice on an iPad course. So this is an active link on here. You can see as I hover over it, it actually has link, because if you've ever done any kind of formatting for a web page, you'll be very familiar with exactly how this works up here. You can create a link into something that you highlight, for example. There's a little link button over here, and you can create a link to whatever it is. I use them in my email addresses is where I pretty much will see that. I think, did I have, oh, here we go. Here's another one. I served as the tech show planning board for the ABA, and we had these little images that this didn't link to anywhere, but I just put a little picture in there at the bottom.
Great, and so I noticed that also has some bold text. So yes, if it's a formatted text snippet, you can fully edit it, pick the formats that you want, the bolds, the fonts, and when you expand that, as long as you're expanding it in a rich text field, it'll accept it. So one little trick that we run into sometimes in support is when people are replying to an email and the email is actually defaults to plain text instead of formatted text, it'll strip out the formatting and it confuses people. So just double check that, for example, a Word document is always formatted text, right? It'll show bold. Right. But sometimes if you have a plain text field, it will not show any formatting, and, well, then it won't show the formatting of your snippet either. And another question is, about what apps TextExpander expands in. So TextExpander is its own app. It can expand in all of the apps on your Mac. It will work in all of the apps on your PC. On iOS, it's a little bit different. That's a more locked down system. So there is a TextExpander app on your phone, which you can expand snippets in. There is a list of apps that have fully added TextExpander support. So I can send you a link to that page that lists out all those apps. You may have heard of some of them, like Byword and Drafts. Those are some of my favorites. So those can expand snippets fully, including formatted or fill-in snippets. You know, the snippets with the sort of specialty fill-in fields that Brett showed you when it came to his snippets on file naming. Now, there's also a TextExpander keyboard. Now, if you set that up, then you'll be able to expand. Thank you, Brett. That's exactly the page. You'll be able to expand in literally any app, but you won't be able to expand the fill-in snippets. So that'll keep you using your snippets in wherever you're typing. But for a little bit more advanced snippets, you'll need to use the either TextExpander app. It has a notes section where you can compose, or one of the apps that supports TextExpander fully.
Yeah, I would just quickly say I love the TextExpander keyboard on my iPhone and iPad, and also what I think you guys call snippet keys. So you can use it just like this, as it shows here on the screen that I got it pulled up. But the snippet keys to me are fantastic. Those are actually little buttons on that my keyboard turns into that have my snippets on there, and I love using that all the time. Or I would just also say, if it worst comes to worst, I'll open up my TextExpander app on my iPhone or iPad, and then it's easy to copy the snippet quickly from the TextExpander app, and then I paste it into whatever I'm working on inside my iPhone or iPad, whether it's in my email, for example, to put a signature in, or Microsoft Word, or whatever the case may be. So there's several ways you can use it on the iOS. It's different because Apple has locked down iOS so much more than they do on the Mac OS, or certainly that Microsoft has locked down on the Windows application. But it's absolutely doable, and I'm constantly using it all the time just because I know the snippets are there, and I don't want to sit there and type everything out on my iPad or my iPhone if I don't have to.
All right, so I sent a link to the blog post we have in the chat that explains all about the snippet keys and the keyboards and how to set that up. Yeah, I like to do actual work on my iPad, and so having my snippets there, for me, it's sort of like a backup knowledge base, right? All of the links that I send, all of the explanations, you know, I answer a lot of questions through email, and so I need to have the answers ready, and I know that they're not misspelled, and I don't have to look very hard. I can just search, and that's easier than, say, looking through, you know, my past history of sent emails to find this information. It's just in TextExpander using a quick search, and that's very handy. A question that we do get sometimes is, how can I use this snippet that's just a chunk of the same text and still have it be customized for the different people I talk to? Well, part of it is, if you take the information that really needs to be there, then that's in the snippet, but then the part where you're sort of want to, you know, customize it, expound. So for example, like the introduction to an email, I can write that out by hand. Or actually, I have a couple of snippets that are different generic introductions, so that way if I'm, say, talking to the same person, I don't actually accidentally introduce myself the same way every time. But then also, if you include some of these fill in the blank areas, so you'll have maybe a sentence or a link that needs to be there, but then you can sort of fill in a chunk of fill in the blank area with something more custom for that occasion. That helps you take a static chunk and then make it more unique to each individual.
Yeah, I hope this is helpful in what they were asking. This is a snippet that I had. Somebody had sent it to me for like a donation. You know, we thank you for your donation, but it can really be anything. It's just this is the example that it had. So as I did, thanks DON, you can see net up here. This could be an email, for example, right? This is where it would typically happen. So I could say, Dear John, and then I just use my tab key. Thank you for a donation of $20. We greatly appreciate you helping use your funds for, and this is where I was talking about the drop down. You can create a drop down in here, and we'll just leave it our health clinic. Since we are a nonprofit, your donation, you can see it was the same fill in here, so it automatically filled that in. You should be tax deductible here. So perfect. I've got everything I needed in there, and there's the email. We didn't get into this a whole lot, but I just quickly will say where that box comes, that Dear John, is this right here, this fill text. So again, this is a little bit more advanced TextExpander, but you just simply do a single line field. You can name the field. I'll just say name. What do you want a default value in there or not? You don't have to, and how big you want the box to be, and you say OK, and you can see this is the one that I just added there. Now I changed this up a little bit differently on there, but that's all that we're doing is just putting in, you're just again using these little drop downs here within fill-ins so that you can add and really just make this more dynamic. Just the fact that it's got these forms in here. And so that's how I would create emails on there. You can do, here's the pop-up sections or the optional sections, which is basically that drop down there. So you're just using the tools that are built into TextExpander. But that's a little bit more advanced than what we were getting into today. But hopefully you guys can see where it can go for sure.
Brett, your last example, you showed off being able to fill in one field and it filled in both places.
Yes.
If we can take a look at that snippet, the way that works is when you create that field, just make sure it has the same name. So you notice that there's a name field, so you can give a field a name. It helps you remember what you're doing in that field. But if you have two fields that have the exact same name, they will actually fill in with the same data. Right when you fill in the first one, they both fill out at the same time. So that can save you a bit of time if you have, say, a single variable that you need to be in multiple spots in a longer snippet.
Yeah, again, this is advanced stuff, but man, it sounds like people are ready for the advanced class already, Maya. But,
Yeah.
but what I've highlighted here is the first, because this is the number here, right? That's what was that is what double filled in. So what I've highlighted, that's the first field, and if you click on this, it actually TextExpander will pop up with it. There it is. So I called it amount, and I only had a width of 4 because I didn't think anybody was going to donate more than 4 digits. But if I go down here to this, you can see I named it the exact same name. So that means that, again, if I pull this up, let's see, THX DON, you can see now that whatever I put into this amount automatically, because it's the same field that puts in down here.
Thank you all for hanging on this long. I can see that you are interested in this topic, so we'd be happy to do another webinar. We can do an advanced one in the future, so hopefully you'll visit us again for that. Thank you so much for all your great questions. That's helping us, it's helping you, and it's also helping the other attendees, so good job there. I want to say thank you to Brett very much for giving us all this great information. And, well, this is TextExpander signing off. Have a great day, everyone.
Thanks, everyone. I appreciate it. Thanks, Maya.